What's going on, everybody? It's Kalen Moss, aka the Minute Admin here, and I've got Penny Wood with me. This is going to be a great session. Penny is a business leadership success coach based in Exeter in Devon, UK, who's passionate about helping business leaders take bold actions that deliver next level success. Penny is passionate about leadership. She knows what it's like to lead huge projects. Prior to her starting her executive coaching and consulting business, Penny worked in the construction industry as a senior project manager on large-scale construction projects in the UK and in USA. Most notably, the high-profile $2 billion historic renovation of the United Nations headquarters in New York. Penny feels your pain as leaders. She helps her clients uncover their blind spots, get clarity on what they really want to achieve so they can take bold actions that deliver next level success. She's all about bold actions. Penny, thank you for being here on the podcast.
Thank you, Kaylin. Thank you for that lovely introduction. It's great to see you. We haven't seen each other for ages, have we? So this is great to catch up today.
I know anytime we go like a month or so not talking to each other, I feel like I start to fall off the wagon a little bit. So I'm going to use this session selfishly to kind of learn from you, but also to give you a chance to show people what you do. And hopefully you all who are watching can learn a thing or two from Penny. I know you will. So just stay tuned. Good to see you, Penny. We're going
Cool.
to jump right in. Yeah, we're going to jump in and we're just going to get this thing started. So, Penny, can you tell us about your journey into the world of personal development, coaching? What got you into it? What's your journey?
Yeah, so I've been involved in leadership development for many years. I started out in the construction industry, and I know what it's like to work on really complex projects where you've got really difficult, complex problems to solve. And through my leadership journey through that, I've got some incredible opportunities around the UK and also in New York. And when I was in New York, I joined Toastmasters International. For those of you who don't know what it is, in Britain, people sometimes think it's someone with a red coat who is a master of ceremonies, but Toastmasters International is not that. It's a public speaking and leadership organization. It's not for profit. And when I was in New York, I was lucky to join a club, and I became the president of that club. It was the ex Twin Towers Club, and it was it was very successful. We took it to the highest educational level we could get to. And whilst I was there in New York, people said to me, "Penny, you're great at speaking. You should be doing public speaking, all the leadership training that you're doing." And so I decided to start my own consultancy, and which I've had for many years now, and I absolutely love what I do.
And it shines through because you've helped me so much. And it's crazy. You started in construction. We met in the education tech field. So it just goes to show your journey. You never know where your journey is going to take you.
You never know. And that's what's so exciting. You meet people from all over the world. I remember seeing you on YouTube. You did a little YouTube interview. And I thought, wow, I'm going to meet him one day. And then we met, didn't we? It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
And it's crazy. Yeah, we could talk for hours about everything that's transpired since we met. But I do want to jump in and just talk about, you kind of mentioned you started in the construction world, and then you talked about your experience with the company in New York and Toastmasters. But really, even before that, what sparked your interest in personal development?
Well, I've always wanted to help people to be successful because I believe that everybody has a level of success inside them. You've just got to find it and you've just got to bring it out in them. I was very lucky, I wasn't that brilliant at school. I wasn't one of those top performing people. And I was, kind of pushed down quite a bit. And I had some incredible mentors outside my kind of school life who took me on an amazing journey. And some of them are still with me today, actually. And they were the people that believed in me and helped me to have confidence in myself and belief in myself. And then my journey started, and I became incredibly successful. And it's down to those people that are with you through the journey. And that's what I love, is I stay with people through their journey. And I've stayed with you right through your journey from the first time we met, right? I'm there from the second we met. I always say to my clients and people I meet, people I meet just around, when you're there, I'm with you for the rest of your journey, however long that is. And I've met some incredible people all over the world when I've been training, and before COVID, when we were going around the world. Now it's all remote, it's all online, but I've met some amazing people. So that's where my passion came from.
I mean, you really have to be a people person, right, to do this. And not only a people person, because people say that word or that cliche term, but you have to care about people. That's what it comes down to. So I even want to go even further back. When did you realize, and this is kind of an off the cusp type of question, the follow-up is, when did you realize you were somebody who cared about the progress of other people other than your own? And what also sparked that?
I think if I think back, I think if I look back at my early days of leadership, it was probably when I could start to see, people around me there were issues they were dealing with, and we would work through them together. They would start to see a different result, and then they'd almost like blossom. They were like a flower that kind of blossomed, and it was amazing to see. And I guess that's kind of what led me down that path.
Yeah. Yeah. And I bet that was like a euphoric feeling, right? That was like you had never experienced that. So it's like, hold on, I want to feel that feeling again. That's awesome.
It's great. Yeah. Because I think, especially when people are struggling with something and then you help them to unpack it and then, help them move on in their career, in their life at that moment, it's amazing. And it's something I just love doing.
Yes. So with that, I'm going to ask you another one. Another question here is, knowing your background, understanding where you came from and what kind of sparked this, moving forward, and even in the present moment, what are the current trends that you see popping up, emerging in the personal development field?
Interesting. Well, there's a lot of change going on at the moment, and I think for one of the things I'm noticing that I'm working with people on is actually their communication, because there's so much volatility in the business world. Things are changing almost daily, and people are finding it quite difficult to deal with. So how they communicate, both verbally and non-verbally, and how they can improve their interpersonal skills, and stay calm. Stay calm is key, I think, and also so that they create that really effective collaboration, because we have to work together right now. What I find is, when I'm talking to business leaders at the moment, everyone feels like they're being pulled in multiple directions. Either their budget's been cut, their people have been cut. Look at the redundancies that are happening every day. I spoke to someone today who's just about to be made redundant, and all those different challenges. So I think communication and how we communicate is key. Another one for me is around emotional intelligence, particularly self-awareness. When I work with people, one of the things that I work to uncover with them is their levels of self-awareness, and how they come across, and how, their behavior and how that might be impacting people, how other people's behavior is impacting them. And that level of self-awareness, that piece, is definitely key.
Yeah. I was just talking with my girlfriend earlier today about self-awareness, right? And it's like, you mentioned something about the business leaders who are being pulled in all these different directions. And really, that is a microcosm of just reality, right? Like, even if you're not a business leader and you're a student in school, how many directions are you being pulled with family, with maybe you're in a romantic relationship, maybe you're friends, maybe you play a sport. And it's crazy because you're talking about something that every single human being on earth struggles with. And you have perfected, I believe, or gotten very close to it if you don't consider yourself perfected, the art of helping high performers achieve an even higher level of performance. And I'm really glad that you mentioned being pulled in all of those directions, because those things do distract you from being able to hone in and get to where you're trying to go. So I'm curious to know, how do you think the trends you're seeing and self-awareness, right? How do you think that type of stuff is shaping the future of the professional workplace?
Well, yeah, that's interesting. I was reading something the other day which said that 1 in 4 jobs are set to change in the next 5 years. I think it was the World Economic Forum. It was their future of work study. And imagine that 1 in 4 jobs are expected to change in the next 5 years. Lots and lots of people's roles aren't going to exist, and they're going to have to do something differently. We had an example of that, how life has changed. So for in the UK, I don't know if this is the same in the US, but when you were working in a supermarket and you went up to the till, there used to be humans there, serving you at the till. Well, now it's all become automated, and you go up, you take everything through yourself, and off you go. Now, what's happened to those people? Because there's still people working. Well, actually, they have transitioned away from the till to the online space, where they're now order pickers, and they are going around picking everybody's orders because everyone's gone online. So what's really interesting, I think, in terms of the digitalization of how jobs are going to change, people are going to have to, there's going to be a lot of change in people's roles. Things, especially with AI is completely eradicating a lot of roles, and people will need to be able to make that pivot and that shift and transition into it, perhaps something slightly different.
Yeah, and you bring up a really good point. Do you think people struggle with, because they're in, like, let's say, for example, it's easy for me to kind of say, oh, well, if I was a person who was checking out the groceries at the store, it's easy for me to say, oh, well, you've got these automated machines that are going to do the job. And in hindsight's 2020 all the time, right? And you look back and you say, well, they could have seen that coming, and they should have learned a new skill, and they should have, maybe read articles about how the grocery store workplace was changing, and they could have pivoted, right? And it's easy to look back and say you should have pivoted so that you weren't out of a job and you didn't get let go. But what about for the people who are in, like, let's say tech right now? You mentioned AI. How do you have an objective perspective on how your job could be made redundant? How do you keep up with things? How do you have the self-awareness to figure out where to pivot to? Like, what's some advice you could give?
Well, I think it's being aware of what's happening, because in tech changes almost daily, weekly, doesn't it? It changes before you know it. You something comes out and there's new software, there are new ways of doing things. So I think what I would say to people is, develop a level of resilience and keep an eye on the future, keep an eye on what's happening, because you may need to make changes. They may not be radical, they may not be huge, but having that ability to think about, well, look, this is where I used to do something, now I'm going to be doing it differently. How does that affect my role? It's affected my business. I do things differently in my business now. I'm much more effective, but I've had to go through, I would say, every couple of months there's a new technology, there's a new software, there's a new set of software I've got to add into my stack. So yeah, I'm constantly developing and looking forward and looking for, what's coming. So I think that level of self-awareness, and then constantly looking at your skill set. Now, what am I doing at the moment? How can those skills transfer as well? Because imagine, I gave that example of someone at the checkout. Now they've got to be able to be pretty spot on with how to manage the computer system, how to speak to customers. There are various different skills there that they would transfer. They may not necessarily use them if they were doing back of house, but they would still have to use new software to understand how to do the order picking. You know, if you've seen that now, it's incredibly complicated. So even though I've used that as an example, I want people to think about, in my job where I am now, what's going to be changing? What am I hearing about? What things do I need to maybe get some new learning on, some new skills? What am I good at, and how can I transfer that if things are going to change that radically where I am right now? Does that help?
Yeah, I'm actually taking notes because no, like and this is so like, I'm not just saying this for this podcast. For anybody who's watching, I'm telling you right now, every time Penny says something, I have to take notes because you make me think about certain things. I don't know if it's the way you explain it, but okay, here's what I started thinking about when you were explaining that was something that I've been realizing is you mentioned communication earlier. And one thing I'm seeing more and more, I was just talking with a recruiter just now, and she was telling me about like my resume, and she was saying, okay, this is how you should put your resume, how you should fix things up. So I started looking at YouTube videos on what's the best way to put my resume together. And the way he was talking about it almost was like writing a paper, but the paper is the end result is your resume. And I started realizing everything I knew about writing a resume was almost wrong because I was looking at it from just one angle instead of looking at it like I'm actually communicating with somebody. And then that sparked while you were talking in a paper, right? You have your intro, paragraphs, conclusion. And in between all those, you have your transition sentences that lead you to the next paragraph. And the way you were just explaining that brought up for me was you have to be good in life at the transition sentences in life.
Good one. Yeah, like
you see what I'm saying? Like you might have a skill, but if you have your eye on the future while focusing on what you're good at, you have to be able to, like you said, make that connection between currently what you're doing and future what's coming, and write that transition sentence of your life so that you can navigate over. But that requires that you understand the concept of proper communication to even get that connection. I don't know if that even makes sense, but
yeah, I'll tell you something also, listening to you speaking, Kaylin, is something there around your personal brand. And I had a conversation with someone earlier today around their personal brand because they're going to be going through a transition through redundancy. And I said to them, we were talking about their resume, and I said, so what's your personal brand? And they kind of went, And it made me think, for you want people to know what your personal brand is. What is it that's different about Kaylin? Why should I take you on?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff. Good food for thought. So I think I have an answer for this next question I'm going to ask, but I want to hear what your answer is. What is do you think the single biggest challenge people face when they want to develop themselves personally, or they're even getting into it?
Okay, so I think probably one of the biggest challenges is what I call that little voice in your head, that chatter in your head, and all that negative self-talk and limiting beliefs that when I talk people through what they're saying, often I challenge that as a limiting belief, and they kind of go, oh yeah, I didn't see it like that. Oh yeah, you're right. Because those negative thoughts, they take over, and they can kind of undermine your confidence and your self-esteem a lot. And they don't have to be like that, because that, a lot of the time, it's a story that you're telling yourself. It's a story from your past. And one thing I say to people when I'm coaching is, I don't want them to bring those negative stories into their future. Because
Yeah.
if you bring that in, what are you going to do? You're going to stay in the same place. And
Yeah.
when you're working with me, it's about that clean sheet and how we're going to move forward. Forget that over there. That's done and that's gone. And so with people's personal goals and achievements, that's really key for me, that negative self-talk and limiting beliefs. Another one is the fear of failure or rejection. A lot of people, when they're, especially if they're going for a big promotion or a new role, there's a kind of fear there, that imposter syndrome kicks in. Funnily enough, I did a session recently about all the different types of imposter syndrome, and people were coming back to me after going, "Oh wow, I didn't realize that's me. You were talking about me when you were talking about that." So getting that, that fear of rejection and criticism, it can really hinder, stifles you in a way. And I always want to kind of open things up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and something that stuck out to me when you said the fear of rejection is, I don't know, maybe it's just my viewpoint on this, but do you think people have a fear of rejection because they have a lack of options? Because it almost is like, let's take job opportunities, for example. If you know a bunch of companies want you, it's not going to be hard for you to ask for a raise at work, because you already know you can get the raise at another company. So what do you think the reason for fear of rejection? And I think even like dating, right? If I'm a single guy and I go up and talk to another person, and I have this thought in my head of, oh, they're going to reject me. Is it because I don't think I have a lot of options? Because if a bunch of people were trying to talk to me and date me, would I be as scared to go up and talk to a person? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, a lot of that is, it's that negative, it's that negative chatter that takes over. And fear of rejection can often come from past experiences. So, oh, I didn't get that job last time, so why am I going to get it this time? Oh, the last time I went dating, it went wrong. The person walked out, or they didn't even show up, or whatever happened. So it's trying to come from creating that blank piece of paper, that blank space that you can step into, that is new. And that's where the excitement is, because you don't know what's going to happen. But that fear, if you let that fear take control of you, it can be completely debilitating. And especially in people's careers, I've had people where, I had a lady that I was coaching at the back end of last year, and she just couldn't see herself progressing. And she came to me after one of my webinars and she said, "Penny, I really want this promotion. This is where I want to go, but I don't know how to do it." We created it. We worked together for 3 months. And you know what? Inside that 3 months, she got that role that she wanted, because we created it. We created it together. She created her vision, and she asked for it as well. Inside her organization, there was a possibility that she was going to move.
Yeah.
But she didn't need to. She just needed to ask for it. And then it was like, oh, yeah, right. Well, we see where your trajectory is going to be. And it was incredible. And then when she wrote to me, she wrote to me recently and she said, "Penny, I didn't even think it was going to be possible." And it's just amazing. She's so happy in her new role. So that fear of rejection, or that fear that you're not going to get something or achieve, it can stop people.
Yeah.
There was a very I remember my dad, years and years ago, he said to me, when you're applying for a job, he said, don't apply for any job and apply for as many as you want, because it's not until you get that offer that you have control over the decision. Right up until that point, it's someone else's decision.
Mm.
So if you've got, these days you've got to go rounds of interviews, you've got to do assessment centers, you've got to do tests. I mean, it's really hard to get, those senior or higher level jobs now. And I don't want people to think, don't let that fear of, oh, I won't pass that test, or I won't get selected, or somebody else is better than me, or I know someone else is applying.
Yeah.
That's their journey. That's not your journey. Don't let that fear take over.
Right. Yeah, that's really good. It's the voice in your head. It always is. We're always our own worst critic, and we're always the one looking back that holds us from getting where we want to get to. And leading to that, can you share an example of how you have helped someone like me overcome a personal challenge? We could even talk about my experience when we first started working together.
Yeah, why not? Why don't you tell? Yeah, why don't you start that?
So the two things that I can really think of, our first call, I think I was just really had that voice in my head, and I didn't think I was performing at the level I could. And so I didn't think that the people around me could trust in me. And I thought that I was on the verge of getting fired or being looked at as somebody who wasn't a valuable team member. And then we went from that conversation to at a certain point, me being like, hey, I actually have accomplished a lot. And like, not in the same conversation. By the time we came back to the point where I realized, hold on. After this call, I realized I'm a very valuable asset at the company. Not because I think I am, but because I've been told I actually am. And my level of output and awareness increased to the point where I was speaking on stage at one of the biggest Salesforce events in the world, and winning a golden hoodie. So I went from not feeling like I was a contributing team member, which I don't know, was a story in my head because you were like, Kaylin, what are you talking about? To winning a whole golden hoodie, which is the number one award I believe you could win in the Salesforce ecosystem. All by just kind of getting out of my own way, but not even just getting out of my own way, but being more self-aware of the fact that I was in my own way.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was that when we worked together at the beginning, Kaylin, it was amazing because there was something for you around not being aware of being able to deliver consistently. Do you remember that conversation? And
Yeah.
about how you manage your time and how you're spending your time during your day. And we did a massive piece of work. And it's something I do with people a lot about how you spend your day. What are you doing? When are you doing it? What are your distractions? We talked about that, didn't we? How to create, we went through lots of different techniques about how to create that consistency. And I remember you having this light bulb moment of, wow, I get it now. And then we transferred. We did an exercise which I do with people quite a lot. Do you remember the to-do list? We did that, and then we got to how to prioritize it. And then, well, how much time is that going to take? Oh, 10 minutes, really? And then by the time we looked through it, oh no, it was 25. And then you got aware. You got a real clear awareness about, oh, I'm underestimating how long it's taking to do things. That's why I'm getting behind, and that's why I'm not delivering on time. So then we rescheduled all that. And then something else I think was a big thing for you wasn't in your calendar. Do you remember that when we did that exercise about taking that to-do list, and now everything is in your calendar? We got it color coded, and you were sitting there looking like, wow, I totally am not relating activity to the amount of time it's going to take to get the output that I want so that I can be someone who delivers on time.
Yeah.
And I think that was huge for you, Kaylin, and that journey that you went on with that discipline. And it took a while, didn't it? It took a while to get that discipline. And because, it's like when you start a new exercise or some regime or something, you say, oh, I'm going to give up. I'm going to give up. And then you didn't. And you kept going and you kept going and you persevered with it. And that's what exponentially changed you for that area. And then The other thing we did was that visualization exercise of you being on that big stage with not a couple of thousand people, Kaylin. We're still on that journey, but do you remember it was like 10,000 people?
Yeah.
And creating that goal for you so you could feel it, you could see it, you could experience it, and it was electrifying, wasn't it? And then look how quickly you got into getting on stage with the golden hoodie, which was a massive milestone on that bigger goal that we're still working on together.
Yeah. I'm so glad you said that. Yeah, it's still such a bigger goal. Still, that's like just peanuts compared to what's going to happen. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I realize that we are jumping into honestly one of our sessions again, and we get to the point where we can talk for hours because I learned so much from you. I'm going to ask you a couple more questions, and I want to get your thoughts on what advice that you can give to people. So what advice would you give to people who are looking for a personal development coach?
Yeah, I think for me it's a two-way street. So I don't work with everybody. So when you're looking for a coach, first of all, do your research. Look at their LinkedIn profile. Look at their website. What are their qualifications, experience, testimonials? Get recommendations from people. Speak to people who've been coached by them. I do that all the time, and there are people I can say, you go speak to this person, or you want to make sure that you know who you're working with, because the coaching space it's a big space, it's very packed, and there are a lot of kind of people who you want to make sure that it's the right fit for you. For me, when I'm talking to someone, I want to know that they're ready to go. They're going to take bold action, because that's my strap line. You got to be ready to step into it, because it's only when you step into it you get the results.
Yeah.
And we've got to see that we get on and we're going to work together, because we're going to do some pretty serious work. So I want people to make sure that it's somebody that they feel comfortable with, and that compatibility is key. And then clarifying, the length of the sessions, the frequency of the communication, how that's going to, all the different agreements you're going to make with each other, expectations. What do you expect of me? What do I expect of you? For me, I've always got homework, always there are actions, and by when. It's
Yes.
not just, oh, I'll give you a list of actions. Oh, by when are you going to do that? Because it's only when you set that by when that it becomes real, and then it transfers into your calendar. So there's a lot of things around accountability, I think, when you're working with a coach as well. So it's, do your research, find out the compatibility, and then work out those expectations between each other.
Yeah, and you have the process down packed. Like, you've got the formula. You clearly get results. I mean, it's shown up in my life. I'm a testament of it. So I'm just curious to see. I've got my idea about what results someone can see, but what results from your perspective could someone expect to see if they were to hire their own personal development coach?
Yeah, I think for me, there are two areas there. So there's the personal side and then the professional side. On the personal side, you get a big, we talked about it already, increased self-awareness. You get to really see who you are, how you show up, and how you behave, and whether that's working or not. So on the personal level, I think you learn a lot about yourself. You improve your confidence as you grow and develop. You become more confident. That in turn helps you to make better decisions. And so you get better outcomes, and you get more self-assurance. Professionally, what happens is you, along with all that self-awareness, you develop a different skill set. You find things that you never used to do, because you'll be doing new behaviors, new ways of doing things. Which will in turn, people say to me, oh gosh, my business relationships have got better. My business working relationships have improved. And then along with that, when you start to elevate your leadership and you get that visibility, and people start to see you differently because you're showing up differently. And that is a huge driver for people, especially with the person I spoke to about earlier, who was going, created that new role for themselves. They realized that they didn't have the visibility that they needed. So we created that. And it took a bit of time, but we created it quite quickly. And then now they're being asked to go on different forums, lead different programs, all sorts of things. And it was in an area where they wanted visibility. So I think professionally and personally, there are two different areas that you can get from that.
Yeah, and it's an exponential. Let's just put it like the results are exponential. They compound, and it's not like, oh, I get this one thing. It's like because of this level of awareness that I have. Exactly. Yeah. So follow-up question to that is, how can people find out more about you, Penny, or find out where you're at? Where do we go find you?
Yeah, well, first of all, my LinkedIn is my place where I hang out. So you can find me, Penny Wood, Business Leadership Success Coach on LinkedIn. Connect with me there. I'm also on Facebook. I have my business page, which is pennywoodtalks.com. You can find my website, which is www.pennywoodtalks.com. Talks is in TALKS. Because along with all my coaching and leadership development, I do a lot of public speaking coaching, and I also speak at events. That's another thing. If you want someone to come and speak at an event, I'm always happy to come and speak at your organization or your event. And you can email me, penny@pennywoodtalks.com.
All right. And for everyone watching, we will have all of those links in the description below. That way you can just click on everything that Penny mentioned there. You don't even have to remember it or memorize it or rewind. It's going to be in the link below. Penny, I appreciate you for coming on the podcast today. Thank you so much. I really, if it wasn't for the sake of the fact that people probably would, not watch the entire thing or whatever, they might, but we could talk for like 2 more hours. I already know we could, but we're going to stop it here. I appreciate you. And thank you so much for coming here, helping me and also helping the audience. And I hope you have a great day. We're going to stop it here. And that's all I've got.
Thank you. Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Kaylin Moss, Penny Wood, MinuteAdmin, Penny Talks, out. Thank you, everybody.